I finally got to see Evil Dead Rise in the cinema. And holy crap, rarely have I ever been so excited to watch a movie. From when they first announced it, to when they showed like a screenshot of the movie, to the first trailer, I was hyped beyond belief. And I finally got to watch it. Yesterday I watched it, this is the day after, of course, that makes sense. Anyways, and I am happy to say it was a freaking awesome movie. A worthy addition to the Evil Dead franchise, and very, very excited about it, and very excited to talk about it today in this video. This is gonna be a little, I guess, my thoughts on the movie. I'm not really like a trained review guy, so I'm just gonna give my thoughts as a random dumb white guy on YouTube. I don't know why I put the white there. I don't think that makes any... Anyways. And yeah, in this video I'm gonna talk a little about my thoughts on the movie. I'm gonna talk a little about the plot of the movie, and there might be some minor spoilers here in the beginning, and later on I might go into some deeper spoilers, but we'll take that as we go. First off, I'm gonna talk a little about the cold open of the movie, and that was probably my least favorite part of the movie, if I'm gonna be honest. It was the part where it had like the weakest effects, and also just some characters that I just didn't enjoy watching. Like, I couldn't give a shit about any of them, and as I said, like, weakest scares, weakest effects, all was in like the cold open, or whatever you call it. Like, that's the start there. And yeah, I'll be honest, I was like clenching my seats, like my hand, what do we call them in the cinema, the things at my side, or clenching it, and I was like, I don't have high hopes anymore. Like, it was coming down a bit, but I'm happy to say it made like a 180 completely, and I was like so happy with where it went. Like, because I knew it was the cold open. Like, it was something we had to get over to get to the high rise where all the stuff actually happens that we see in the trailers, and I knew it was something we needed to get over it. But I was just afraid that it was gonna be like kind of telling of what else would get in the movie, and luckily it was not. Again, it's not like atrociously bad. Why do I decide to speak worse? I don't know. But it's just it had the wrong tone completely for me, so not that happy with it. But yeah, that was the only part that I just really wasn't happy with. Other than that, I think this movie was great. It had a great mix of CGI and practical effects, and the makeup was just outstanding. The actors did an amazing job, especially Alyssa Sutherland, who played the possessed Ellie. I'm not good with names, let me just check. Yeah, Ellie was the name of the character. I'm terrible with names. Anyways, she did an amazing job as the possessed mother of the family, and really wonderful. She really carried a lot of the scenes of the movies, and what amazing actress to see. But the other actors also added something to the movie, especially the youngest daughter, Cassie, played by Nell Fisher. I mean, a lot of the humor comes from her and the stuff that she does in the movie. And yeah, and this movie has a little humor. The thing about the 2013 one was it just went straight horror. And like, I watched that one a couple of days ago. I rewatched all the movies just before I watched this one. And it has, as far as I remember, nothing to laugh off. It goes like straight horror. And it was nice to see them try to add a little humor. It's not like haha, like laugh out loud humor, but it was nice, like, you know, it felt like that's what you want in an Evil Dead movie, at least. I mean, the Evil Dead franchise are pretty much known as an horror comedy movies by now, even though the first one was originally not meant to be funny, I think, in its release, but over the years it kind of definitely has evolved into a horror comedy. I mean, some of the effects you can laugh a little off, and especially like the clothes and the hair of the characters, and some of the acting as well. But yeah, 2 and 3 are definitely just straight up horror comedy, and Army of Darkness, like I guess that's the third one, also it has this fantasy element, which is wonderful. But we shouldn't talk too much about that, the other movies. We should talk about Evil Dead Rise. Another thing I have to praise this movie for, and that's maybe a little weird, is its running time. Like, it's just a little over 90 minutes, and these days I feel like all movies coming out are just a little under or a little over 2 hours long, and most of them don't need to be that. This one just, it felt very tight with those, I think it's like 94, 96 minutes in total, and everything just felt very tight. There wasn't really, except for the cold open, there wasn't really anything I wanted to cut from the movie. I might want to like add a little more with the family, perhaps. Like, I mean, there's a lot of the family, but I probably would like to see a little more of the like older brother and older sister of the family before everything goes to shit, just to care a little more about those characters. We also have a lot of great homages in this movie to a lot of other horror movies like The Shining and The Thing, and maybe some other ones that I missed, and that was really nice to see. And I don't know, it just, when all these great horror movies kind of like elements collide, it just makes this just a very cool pot of a horror stew. Does that make sense? Anyways, it was very great to watch. I was very happy throughout the movie. It's such a shame that horror movies rarely gets taken serious in Hollywood, because I feel like some of the makeup effects should probably be worthy of a prize or like an award in some of those big fancy award shows they have in America. Like, holy crap, especially like the makeup. It looks amazing of the characters. And there's like a lot of gruesome scenes that just makes you like, ooh, that looks like it hurt. But also makes you like all giddy inside, like that sick little bastard we all know we are. I know you are. If you're watching me, I know you're a sick fucking bastard. I love you. But yeah, I think I'm gonna finish this part of this video, like just talking about the movie overall. I'm gonna finish off with saying it's a great fucking movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Bear with the opening. The cold open wasn't really great, but bear with it, and it's gonna get much greater once we get to high rise and shit hits the fan. Like that's when it gets really cool. And yeah, 2 big thumbs up from me. And now I think we should go into the plot of the movie. As I said about the cold open, we see like a couple of young people hang around the lake at the cabin, kind of like a notch to the original movies, even though there were no lakes in that, except for the like river around. That doesn't matter. And we see them hang around and do like kind of nod to the whole like camera following the ground thing, where a guy uses his drone to sneak up on his girlfriend's friend who are at the cabin. And yeah, the girlfriend's friend then goes back to the cabin where the girlfriend of the guy with the... I know I'm messing up this guy. I said this video is probably gonna be a mess. But yeah, the friend of the girlfriend of the guy goes back to the house at the cabin. Or like the cabin, fuck me. But yeah, the friend of the girlfriend goes back... But yeah, the friend of the girlfriend of the guy at the lake goes back to the cabin. This took me like 8 times to get that right. Gets back to the cabin where she's laying in the bed, and I mean, as a viewer, we know she's possessed. We know this shit is about to hit the fan when she gets up. And yeah, she does get up. She rips up the hair of the girl, and the wig that is pulled off didn't look that great. I think that's one of the effects that I talked about that I didn't enjoy that much. I did like the brain parts that we see underneath, or like the skull. Technically, it looked like brain at first, but later we see like it was skull. But yeah, and then the girl who had just been scalped crawls down to the lake to the guy, to the boyfriend, and she's getting run after by the possessed girl, who then also like takes his drone, the guy's drone, out the air and knocks her own head into it. And we see some not that great effects on her face as well, and then the boyfriend jumps into the water to save her, and while she's there he kills her, and the lady just rises up. And that was kind of, I would say that was kind of a cool scene when the lady like rises up from the lake, and we get the title of the movie, Evil Dead Rise. That was pretty cool. I like that. But yeah, and then it says one day before, which made me think like, are some of these characters gonna like appear in the movie? Because they were not in the trailer. None of those characters or names was like in the trailer. So it was a little like, are we gonna see those guys in this movie? Are they gonna have like an importance? And no, they're not. They're just there for the freaking cold open, and we didn't need them. And then we cut to Beth, who is like a musician technician with bands, like the guitar technician or something like that. Like, to me it just sounded like she was like a glorified roadie, but I don't know. I should probably pay a little more attention when you talked about her job. For the longest I thought she was like playing in a band, but she's like a technician to like the bands that she follows around and like work that around. But I guess that's her job. And she's been kind of straight with her sister over the years, like with her job that takes her around the world. But one day she finds out she's pregnant. She takes a pregnancy test. She says it's positive, and that makes her contact her sister, who lives in the high-rise. The sister is played by Alyssa Sutherland and is named Ellie, and she does such a great job in this movie, I tell you that. And Ellie lives in the high-rise with her 3 kids. Her husband recently left her, and now suddenly her sister comes back into their life. Now Ellie sends the kids down to get pizza. When they're coming back down in the garage of the high-rise, suddenly an earthquake hits, and the ground opens up into like an old bank vault, where the son, the oldest kid, crawls down and looks through some of the boxes and files down there, and that's where he finds the Necronomicon, as well as some old vinyl records recorded with some of the lore we get of the movie. And he takes it back to his apartment and he starts playing the vinyl records, where we hear about this old priest who talks about the books. He says there are like 3 Necronomicons, and I thought that was a cool nod to Army of Darkness. It's something like, it could just be a cool nod to that. It's also something you can build lore on. My first thought on it was like that the 3 books we saw in Army of Darkness, like 2 of them wasn't just dummies. They were like the 3 books that he talked about, like there was of the Necronomicon, and each of them have like their own demons and spells and stuff. And we even see that this movie has these like nasty little, almost like teeth on the side, which made me think that it was the one that Bruce Campbell or Ash put his hand into, and it bit down. Like, it made me think that was the one of those that they had gotten. And maybe again, it also made me think like maybe the one that we see in the original Evil Dead series, where Bruce Campbell has their own book, and the one from the 2013 remake had one book, and this is the 3rd book we see. It could also be that just opening up to more possibilities of later movies. You never know. They could build on it like however they want, and like fans could like me speculate about it like a like a fucking nerd that I am. I really enjoyed that they talked about that. Anyways, the priest starts to reading up. Like, we hear him talk about the books, that how he found it, and he wants to learn more about like the beyond, that and the realm of the dead, the book of the dead. So and he talks about that to his other priest friends or clerics or whatever they are, and they're all like, heretic. I think that was my best Warhammer 40k Inquisition voice. Anyways, they're all like against it, but he starts like reading up from it, and as he does that, the spell suddenly starts to activate from the book, and everything goes to shit. Like, the apartment building gets crazy, and Ellie, who was in an elevator, gets the tree rape we see in this movie, but in the elevator instead. Like, you know, in the first Evil Dead and the 2013 remake, there's like this tree rape always. I mean, it wasn't that much of rape in the remake. It was more like a possession. It felt more like that. In the first one, it was definitely just rape. And we have the same thing here. But again, it felt more like a possession, where like Ellie is in the elevator and the cable comes out and grabs her and pulls her and holds her, and we get the idea that she gets like possessed by the entity of the book. And it was great. It was great to see that. And this is where shit just hits the fan. She falls over and everybody thinks she's dead, but guess what? She isn't dead. She comes back and just goes fucking ham on everyone. We see some of the other residents of the apartment who are running around outside, and one of them talks about his shotgun, and a lot of religious guy. We also see 2 kids who are kind of like, one of them is trying to hook up with the oldest daughter of Ellie. And I like when we see those guys, they're like knock on the door, she opens it up, and the oldest kid is like eating a bag of chips and says like, wanna come over? We're watching all of the Freddy movies. And the youngest, and then a young kid he was with said, yeah, even the bad one. And the oldest just went, down the bad ones. And I laughed out loud because that's my man. You're my man. I like that. I like you a lot. But yeah, like any horror fan, she just closed the door on us. I felt that to my gut. But yeah, and we see some of those characters, like an older man and a younger man, religious man, and those 2 young kids. They're also living on the same floor as they. And yeah, Ellie starts terrorizing everyone. We actually get like a beautiful shot of fruit, like what we call the eye hole peeper thing you have in the doors, where she just tears them up. and the only thing we can see, like we see stuff off scenes, and that was just great. I think that's something Lee Cronin does amazingly well, the stuff that you don't see, especially with the Hole in the Ground, his other movie he's made, which is also like, a lot of people talk about like motherhood, and that's something he focused on in his movie, and you can definitely see that. I'm not good at analyzing shit, so I'm probably not going to go too much into that. But yeah, he does something very great with like the horror that you don't see directly, but just what you hear, and yet here he also just shows the fucking horror that you see. So very amazing. I should probably put this one down. I'm getting tired in my hand. And yeah, all the gore just goes crazy, and they lock Ellie out of the apartment, but then they realize that the oldest daughter has also been possessed by the demon, and she starts going crazy, and you know, everything just starts going crazy. I don't think I'm gonna talk too much more about the plot itself. Great movie, everything goes crazy. I think I said crazy like a million times in this video, which just because I have very limited vocabulary. Hey, I managed to say that. I'm gonna talk also about the ending, or like the climax of the movie. Again, it was very cool. We see like all the family members except for the youngest daughter and the other sister, what's her name, Beth. All the other family members, the older brother, the older sister, and the mother, who all have been possessed, starts to mix together and into this like freakish looking monster that looked like something from The Thing or Call Out of Space, and really horrific cool thing. And they end up chasing Beth and the youngest daughter and Cassie throughout the basement of the high rise, and very cool scene. Then we get like, again, something that looked cool, but it just made me like go a little what throughout it, because of course they end up getting a chainsaw, and they hold off like this master hybrid thing with the chainsaw at a big wood chipper, which I also feel like was a cool little nod to Supernatural. Maybe not, but just like that's the like this reference to Supernatural where they talk about how to kill monsters, and then they're like a wood chipper kills everything, and there they are in front of the wood chipper, and the big like the sister Beth is holding a chainsaw, and the wood chipper's on, and she's kind of like forcing it into with the chainsaw, and the angles, the shots, and like the climax, it's almost identical to the climax of the 2013 remake. Like the main character killing off the monster with the chainsaw, and like even the damn angles are so fucking similar. And I would say, like, I wish they'd done something a little more of their own with the ending, because it felt a little too much like a rehash of that. And that ending, like from 2013, that's probably my top 3 Evil Dead moments. Like, I fucking love that scene, like with the gore and the blood and the burning house in the background. It's one of the best scenes in the Evil Dead movies, and it felt like they were trying too much to go for that. And while it still looked cool, it just didn't really hit the same notes, especially because I was also just sitting there thinking, this is a little too similar to that. And yeah, then it pretty much ends. Cassie and Beth are the only ones who survive, and as we see at the ending, down at like the 4th floor, I think, a girl pops out. I think her name is Jessica in the movie. I cannot really remember. And she was the girl who was possessed in the cold open, because she was like in the same apartment building, and she went through the basement on like, doesn't matter. It has absolutely nothing to do with the cold open. It doesn't. You could cut all that shit out. That would actually be a better movie, I think. Now, this morning when I drove to work, I started listening to a podcast, because I was still like hyped on the movie, and I wanted to hear like other people talk about it. And I found this podcast where someone was talking about it, and they weren't that impressed with it. And I always like to do that. Like when I really hype about something, I like to hear someone who are like not impressed by it, and like kind of like to like challenge myself and my thoughts about the movie. And yeah, I think they failed that. Some of the complaints they had was like very dumb complaints. One of the complaints they had was by the cheese grater scene. Like, if you have seen the trailers, you have seen the cheese grater scene, like where the possessed person grabs the cheese grater and just runs it down the leg of the person, and it like and we see the full scene in the movie, of course. And the guys in the podcast was not impressed by it, because they wanted to go down to the bone when she did the cheese grater. it didn't go down to the bone. It take off like a good lump of flesh when she pulled this down. And I don't think, even with the sharpest cheese grater, and even if you're like the frigging mountain from Game of Thrones, I don't think you could pull hard enough with a cheese grater to go down to the bone. So I don't really know what they were like on. Even if you like, when all grating, it will take like a little while. You could probably do it. But I liked it because it was more of like why can I say that now? It was more of a relatable pain. Like, we all been with a cheese cutter and just accidentally cut ourselves with our hand. I was like, ooh, that hurts like a son of a bitch. And to see that happen to your leg, you like everyone, even like a children, ooh, because that's the pain that people can relate to. Not the one when people get that like that, hands and arms and everything just torn off. That's not something most people can relate to. The fucking cheese grater was great because it's a relatable pain. Had they gone all the way down to the bone or all the way crazy with it, it would have gone too silly and it would not have gotten people to be like, ooh. It would just have gone like people to be like, it's just the other horror. Gosh, shit. So I like the cheese grater. I think it was great that they didn't overdo it with the gore on that. It's like, it made it feel more real. So that's one of the complaints that I feel like defending the movie several times. I was sitting there in my car almost getting angry driving to work listening to a podcast, and I wanted like to defend the frigging movie. They also like would go back and forth to complain about the movie being too similar to previous movies and also too different from previous movie, which like it needs to be similar to some degree because it's part of a franchise. You need to like if you made a new Scream movie and Ghostface didn't call anyone on the phone, I think people would get a little upset. If you make an Evil Dead movie and there wasn't like any possessed people with creepy eyes, I think people would be a little upset. And yeah, I think you need to like, as a franchise, you need to follow a certain line of guidelines. Sure, you could also, I would say you could change a handful of small things from the movie and it could have been its own thing. You could say the same thing about the 2013 remake, but still, it's a great remake, and this one was also very great. But then again, I would agree that the ending perhaps was a little too close to the 2013 one. And that's my two. I have two gripes with this movie: the cold open and the ending being it still look cool. Don't get me wrong with that. It still look cool, but it's just way too similar to the remake. And I don't think I can boil any more soup on this conversation. Again, I really like this movie. If you're an Evil Dead fan, you have already watched this. You have already watched it. You enjoyed it. Most likely you've enjoyed it. If you have some complaints, fair on you. Like, not every movie is for every person. And I really enjoyed this. I was happy to get this, to watch this. And I'm gonna go watch this again next week, hopefully, with a buddy. And when this gets released, I'm gonna get the 4K version, so I have like all the movies on 4K, which and I actually watched all the movies on 4K. Like, I did the unboxing or showing off the 4K movies that I just got of the Evil Dead movies, and just a quick little update. The first movie, the original Evil Dead, if you have it on Blu-ray, you don't really need to upgrade it to 4K. It doesn't really like benefit a whole lot from it, I would say. 2 and Army of Darkness, they do get some improvement, and it was cool to see those in 4K. The one who probably benefited from it the most was probably the 2013 one. It's also the newest one, so it's probably the one they could do the most with when upgrading. And that was pretty much like my thoughts. If in case you wanted to upgrade your movies to 4K, you can skip the first one, get the other ones. I think I'm gonna end this video. So I'm just gonna say the Evil Dead Rise was great. Fuck off! I thought that was funny, but if you've been sticking through the bad English, you're a real hero. Thanks for watching and take care.